So that's an animated floor lamp, brought to life one piece at a time. In the last episode, I designed the original version of this lamp. I'll drop the download to the blend file in the description so you can download and start animating on your own. In this episode, I'm going to teach you how to animate modifiers, how to animate materials, and how to normally use the transform as an active animation tool, and much more. I know I'm a new channel, but before we begin, consider dropping a like and subscribing to the channel for more Blender tutorials. It'll give me motivation to make more videos about simple tips and tricks and full tutorial guides to help you out. So let's break down each piece one by one. Okay, so we have the base. We have the base, which is a cylinder. We have the ornament, which is a screw modifier. We have a stem, which is basically a cylinder. I cannot move it because I have things parented to it. I have another piece of ornament. Then I have the harp and the lampshade and the cable, of course. These are the pieces, and we need to figure out how to animate each and every one of this object coming together piece by piece and completing our entire model. So let's start with base. So for the base, I'll use the basic of animation, just using rotation, location, scale, and dimensions. We want the animations to start by spinning this disc on the floor. So how to do that? Let's figure out which is the front side. This is the front. Okay, the y-axis is the front. All right. Now, first thing we need to do is adjust the origin point exactly on the base of the cylinder, the base. So first for that, we need to go into edit mode by pressing tab, click on the face by choosing face mode, which is 3, click on the face, press shift S and cursor to active. This will align the cursor to the active object. After that, you get back out of edit mode to object mode, right click on the object, set origin to the 3D cursor. That means the 3D cursor, the origin right now is at the 3D cursor and the cursor is at the center of the face. Now you just need to adjust the z-axis to make it to 0, so it is adjusted exactly on the ground. Okay, first thing, now since it is exactly on the floor, we need to rotate it in the y-axis or the x-axis at 30 degrees. 30 degrees. All right. Don't forget to bring the timeline up a little bit. That will be very useful. Okay, once we do that, we'll insert a keyframe. To insert a keyframe, you can either right click and click insert keyframe for that rotation section, or you can just press I. That will also add keyframes for that object. Make sure you hover over the rotation section before you press I, but if your mouse pointer is inside and you press I, the entire object will get a keyframe. So your best option is to hover over the rotation, any of the rotation, and press I. So now the rotation has a keyframe. The keyframe is added in this timeline here. So at the 0 frame, we have a keyframe added for the rotation on the x-axis. Now let's see, we need, let's say, a 3 second of rotation. That means if we consider 30 frames per second, you will need 90 frames. But I am going to make it 60 frames per second in the output settings. 60 frames per second will take longer to render, but if your PC is slow, you can either render in 30 frames per second or 24 frames per second. I'm going to do it 60 frames per second. So that means 60 frame is 1 second for me. Then 120 second is going to be 2 seconds. And 180 frames is going to be 3 seconds. So in 180 frames, I want this plate to rotate in the z-axis 10 times. So one full rotation is 360 degrees. So I'm going to add 360 into 10 in the z-axis and press I again to lock the rotation as a second keyframe on the 180th frame. Now if I drag back the frame or the timeline back to 0, you can see our cylinder rotating and moving. But I don't want it to just spin in this axis. What I want to do is, while it reaches 180 frame, I want it flat on the ground. That means I need to remove the X rotation and make it back to 0 degrees. And I'll press I again. So when you press play again in the timeline, it slowly stops into stable motion. So now it's like a spinning disc, which is slowing down gradually and just halting to a stop. Now one more thing, but now on the zero frame, first frame, let's move it to first frame. I don't want to say 0th every time, so let's move it to first frame. So first frame, this is the base, but half of the cylinder is going below the base. So in the first frame, you need to adjust this location on the Z axis. Make sure you just touch it right there. There we go, and insert a location keyframe. So now when you play it, the location is switched upwards. Now on the last frame, on the next frame, we'll change that Z back to 0 and press I again. That will insert another keyframe on the location section. Now when we play, the base will never change and it will always stay on the ground. Now you have the animation set for the base just using transform on location and rotation. If you want to use scale, you can use scale too, maybe like slightly every rotation slightly increasing the scale, and we will only work as our main base lays flat at 3 seconds, 180 frames, and we're rotating it 10 times. Now since we have figured out our spinning disc, which is the base, at 180 frames, we need to bring in our second object. So we have our base, we're just gonna land right there at 180 frames, and by 170 frame I want to start building this. Just before this is gonna land, I will start building this. So how are we gonna do that? What we're gonna do is, we're gonna parent this object onto this object. For that, first we select this object, then you select the base and press Ctrl P, then you set parent to object. Now if you move this, that moves together with you. Now when that is spinning, this is also spinning, you see? But at 170 frame, I'm adding a keyframe for this. Now this is where we work the keyframes for modifiers. In the last episode, we have added a screw modifier for our ornament over here, and the angle was 360 degrees. So let's say in the next 1 second, I want it go from 0 degrees, which is nothing, and finish it a whole full circle with 360 degrees. To do that, it's simple. At 170, we'll add a keyframe for 0 angle here and insert a keyframe. 60 frame is 1 second. That means we know our next is at 230 frames. So that is 1 second. I'm going to add another keyframe with 360 and click on insert keyframe or press I to complete that animation. So when we play from the beginning, so it appears like this. So the second object just build after the spinning got completed. But I want the second ornament piece to build before the spinning gets completed. So I'll select both of the keyframes in the timeline, press G to move it, and let's move it to 120 frames to 180 frames. That means while we finish the spin, the ornament is going to build itself. So we're going to put it right there. We go to the first frame again, and we'll just play it again, and it looks like this. So it spins around and creates itself at the same time, like that. Maybe it's too fast, so let's just say we increase by half a second. That means 1, 2, 3. We'll move the 180th frame to the 210th frame. So that means we'll build it a little bit slower. So now we know we have the base, we have this ornament which is building, with just giving a simple keyframe onto the screw modifier, nothing else. This next part is going to be a little bit of magic. We're not going to give keyframes to transform or any modifiers. This doesn't even have any modifiers to work with. And this is where the magic is going to happen. Animation on materials. So what we're going to do is switch this to viewport shading, so we can see the object. So it's a black metal object. Now what I want, make this object appear from bottom, slowly up, reaching up right here. So how to do that? There's a different little ways to do that with the curves and everything, but I'll show you the simple method how to do this. And on this object only, in the materials tab, create a new material by pressing this button, not deleting and creating new one. This will just duplicate the existing material into a new slot. Now it is material 0.00 material.006. We'll just change into stem anim. Let's go to shading mode. Let's isolate that with our slash key, so we only see the object. Now I'll show you the magic. So right now this is the base object, principal BSDF, which has a 50% metallic, which is a black color, and connected to the surface modifier. Here we're going to add a transparent BSDF. So we'll press Shift A and search for transparent BSDF. So why transparent BSDF? We're going to animate a piece of this material, mixing it with our current principal BSDF and animating the transparent to go from bottom to top. So let's see how it works. So we have two principal BSDF and transparent BSDFs. We need to mix these two shaders. So we'll add a mix shader by pressing Shift A and searching for mix shader, and connect the first one to the first shader and the second transparent BSDF to the second shader. Now you can see it's like halfway mixed. That's not what we want. We need to switch the location of the transparent BSDF. For that, we're going to add a texture coordinate. First, and from the generated node, we're going to take one and add a separate XYZ value, separate XYZ vector. From that, we only need to animate in the Z axis. So from the Z axis, we'll add a math value, math, and change that to less than, and add the threshold to 0, make the threshold to 0, connect the value to the factor node. Now see, we'll not see any of the shaders mixing. So now if you increase the value to 1, it disappears. If we reduce slowly, you see it's slowly giving the feeling of it's disappearing and appearing. So now there's a small problem. From 0 to 1, it's going from up to down. So what do? You basically shift these two shaders. Put the shader principal BSDF for the second slot and the transparent BSDF in the first slot. Now if we go from 0 to 1, there we go, our pole is slowly appearing. Now what do? Now you bring up your timeline right here at frame 200. Let's add a keyframe for this at 0 value, and at keyframe number, let's increase our total keyframes here to 1000. At keyframe number 200, 300, let's say, no wait, at 250, let's say 250, we'll change the value to 1 and add another keyframe to it. So when we start from the beginning, let's go back to our layout mode, unisolate by pressing slash. When we play, the object is right there. It's just invisible. If you go to our viewport shading, it's not visible. Now if you play, it'll rotate. The thing is gonna appear, and there we go. Our stem is gonna grow from that piece. But we need to make the stem growth really slower. So how do we do? We go back to the material. We go back to the factor where we know where the threshold is. Remove that keyframe from 250. Let's go to, let's say, 500. And we'll add factor value 1 as a keyframe. So it'll slowly increase, slowly. Number 440, we have our next object, which is this ornament. So we'll do the same thing as we did for this ornament. We will go to this modifier, modifier section. We have the screw modifier. We'll go to 0 right now and add a keyframe right there. You can press this dot as well in the end to add a keyframe, or also you can press I. Then in next 1 second, which is 60 frames, not 1 second, let's say 50 frames. At frame number 490, we'll add a 360 for that and add another keyframe. But the ornament, I feel like it's too late. So let's say when we reach here, the ornament starts. So we'll move the keyframes a little bit back to number 400. So right there, it starts generating and it goes up. And from 500th frame, we need to build this. So how do you think we'll build this? Now for the harp of the floor lamp, what we're going to do is we're going to add a build modifier. Now this is a really fun modifier. It can make things look really fancy. So what did just happen? It started building itself from frame 1 and finishing it at frame 100. So start frame and length, that's what it matters. Let's say we want to start it after we finish our object at 500 frame. Let's say 490. At frame 490, we need to start building it. So just have to put the frame number here, start frame 490. All right. And the length to be 100 frames, which is 1.5 seconds, one and something seconds. Let's just make it correctly 1.5 seconds as 90 frames. So at frame 490, it will start building, and in 1.5 seconds, there we go, we have our harp slowly build into position. Slowly build into position in exactly at frame 580. 90 frames. That's it. We have our harp. Then now at frame 580, let's say 580, we'll start at 580 itself, maybe 570. I need the bulb holder to appear. Just the bulb holder to appear, just from out of thin air. So what we do, we just reduce the alpha, make a new material for the bulb holder, we just make a copy of it. Then reduce the alpha, so it's completely invisible. Add a keyframe. In the next keyframe itself, just one keyframe apart, you add the alpha back to 1. So it will just pop into existence, just a symbol boop, into existence. So after the bulb holder appears, I need the bulb to spin slowly into position. So what we do, our bulb will pop up first. We have two materials on this. We need to switch off our light. So we know the strength is 200. Let's switch off it to 0. We don't have any emission on it. Now let's move at 571 after our bulb holder appears. We need our bulb to appear. So what we do is we place it right here. We add a keyframe at the next frame, not this frame, at the next frame, 572. We'll add a keyframe here for the location. Now at the next frame, at the previous frame, what we do is we jump one frame back with the left arrow, then just increase the z-axis to an exorbitant amount. So it's just not, it's just out of frame somewhere in the abyss. So we'll add another thing over there. So in one single frame, it's just going to jump into existence. Once it jumps into existence, what we need to do is, let's say in next 50 frames, it's in 610, we need it to spin around and fit into place. So let's start spinning it. Let's say, let's just make it spin 2 times, 360, 360, 720, and press I to save that, and it just spins 2 times. Now while spinning, it has to go into the holder, right? So we start the location. We know this location is 4.3703, and at the next frame, location needs to change and go inside the bulb holder right there, and we press I again on the location. So the bulb just comes in and just fits right into place. Next step, we have this small ornament on top. We'll use the same function we did for the material right here. So we can just duplicate, link this material onto this, link materials. That also pops up on the nice timing. So let it be exactly at the same time. Let pop it at the same time. After that, what we need to do is at frame 610, we need our lampshade to appear. So for the lampshade, we did the same thing. We did the screw modifier. So at 610, we'll add a 0 right there, and at 700, let's say at 700th frame, we'll add a 360. Now from frame 700, we need our switch to appear and turn on the lamp. Basically, that's our goal. We need our switch to appear. Only this thing is left. First, we'll make this thing appear from the middle like this. How do we do that? We do the same thing what we did for the hole. Because this is going to be a little bit complicated. I'll show you how to do that from the middle as well. So we'll duplicate the first the material. We'll link the material first. Then we'll make a duplicate of that material. We don't want to work on the same material. We'll make a duplicate of that material. Clear the keyframes on the threshold. Clear the keyframes and go back to shading. Now we know we are in the keyframe number 700. Let's just don't change that. To do that, we'll delete the less than. We'll add a color ramp. We'll change into constant. We'll connect the z-axis to the factor and the color to the factor for the mix shader. We'll add 3 colors. So first, this will be black. The first color will be black. The second color will be white. And third color, which is number 2, will be black. So now nothing is visible. Everything is black. We'll add 700 frame. At 700th frame, we'll add keyframe for each color by pressing I, hovering over and pressing I on each color. Now at let's say 760 frame, which is 1 second, we'll move to the 760 frame. We'll go back to color 0 and add another keyframe. We don't want to change the position for that. We'll add a keyframe for that. The second color, will change to 0.0001 and add a keyframe for that. And for the next color, we'll add keyframe, change it to 1 and add another keyframe for that. So that animation goes like this. But there's a small problem. Starting, there's a small transparent issue. So how to fix that? We'll select 0 and change it to white and press I on the color. So now what happens? But we need to go back to the starting frame and change it to black and press I again on the color, hovering on the color. Now it's white. So once it slowly reaches, it goes to full color. But what we need to do is, just before the last frame, the color 0 should be black, back to black. That way, the gradient shift will be invisible. Now the entire thing is moving from the middle to a full solid body. That's how you animate the material from a middle section, by animating the color ramp itself. Next, we'll animate this cables. For that, stem animation, we'll duplicate that same material which is on this, link it to this material, link materials, and select it again. Just duplicate this material and remove the keyframes. The keyframes for the first one, the stem, is in a different location, so we need to duplicate the material and add new keyframes. So at the shading modifier, we'll give a threshold of 0 at 760, and at 800 we'll give a threshold of 1 and press I. At 760, my bad, at 760 we need to make sure it is minus 0.001, because a small patch will be visible otherwise. So from here, when we press play, it will slowly appear from the bottom, but we need to make it appear from the top. So to do that, we just shift the mix shader up and down. So now it is appearing from top to bottom. So let's just say we have our first section at 770. I need the beads to start appearing. How do you do this? What I gave array modifier to beads. So we'll do the same thing. We have 23 beads on this. We'll add a keyframe at 770. All right. And at 800, once everything is done, we'll add 23 and add a keyframe. So it slowly increases with the cable. So the first one is visible even before the animation starts. So what we do? So at the first frame, we add a location modifier, location keyframe as well. Just one frame before, we'll just move it all the way up out of the frame. Just some exorbitant amount. And press I again. So as soon as the thread starts popping, it is just magically filling in the beads. And at the end, at the 800, 805 fifth frame, I want this to appear as well. So what we do, we add a keyframe for the location. We just want to pop it up, right? Keyframe for the location, and one keyframe before, we'll just move it away from the scene. Just press I again on the location, so it'll just appear instantly. So now we have our switches forming into place. So one thing is left is switching on the light. So once the switch is ready at 810th frame, what I will do is turn on the bulb. So we had given strength 0 for this. So at 809, we're going to keep it at 0, so it doesn't change. So add a keyframe for 0. And for 810, we're gonna keep that to 5 to just say 300 and add a keyframe. So the light just turns on. And that's it. We'll have frames till 840. 840 looks fine. 840 frames for an animation. Now when we start playing, we need the cable as well. The cable is a curve, so we'll use the build modifier. Same how we did for the frame. At 180, we'll start doing the cable. So at 180, the cable will add a build modifier. Start frame at 180 and end frame at 100. So just another 100 frames, it will just fill in the cable. Now what we're going to do is add a camera to track the animation. I want the camera to go around and up. That means in a spiral direction. To do that, first you need to go to Edit, Preferences, and make sure your Extra Curve Objects add-on is installed. Make sure it's activated, and when you go to add a curve, you can see these new options. In that, go to Spiral Sections and go to Archimedean. In the Archimedean section, make sure the radius growth is 0 and the height and the radius needs to be adjusted. Make sure your camera goes above the lamp. So height is 1.75 meters. Radius is 0.64. Radius looks good. It goes around the camera. Maybe increase the radius a little bit. So now you have a spiral shape which your camera can track. Or you can also, if you want more rotation, you can decrease the height and increase the turn one more time. So you have two full rotations around the lamp. All right, so now you have your path. This is how you make a spiral. So now you have your path. We need a camera. We already have a camera. So we're going to turn on the scene. We have this camera. So what we're going to do is attach this camera to this spiral. So we can increase the spiral size if you want later on. It's still a curve. So we are going to attach this camera to this spiral curve. So on the camera sections, you go to Constraints, Add Objective, Follow Paths, and you select the curve. After that, set the camera's location XYZ to 0 and the rotation as well as to 0. Now your camera is starting at the start point of your curve. And also make sure you turn on fixed position. So 0 to 100 is exactly from the start point to the end point of the curve. So once that's sorted, you need this camera to track an object. Let's fix the camera first. Let's add an empty in the middle, which is gonna be a sphere, empty sphere. Let's just reduce the size quite a bit. Take the camera, add another constraint and select track to. Once you select track to, select the eyedropper and select the empty. Now the camera is always tracking the empty. If you animate it, it always tracking the empty. So now what we need to do is animate the empty from 0 to 950 to slowly move up our floor lamp. So at the starting location 000, we'll put our location keyframe. All you have to do is you go to the last frame 950, bring the empty up, put it right there on top and make another keyframe. So now the camera is tracking the empty as our lamp grows. Now what we need to do is move the camera. So for that we need to do the offset factor. So at 0 frame, we're going to add a keyframe. and at the last frame 950 we're going to add a 1 offset keyframe. Now we go look at the camera, it is always looking at the empty, so we're going to change the empty to look a little bit down for the last frame, then change the keyframe again. So now when we play, this is how your animation will look like. So we play, then you go, that is build, the wire came out, this is going up, but in the middle it's a little bit slower than expected. It's not tracking in the camera, and the bulb is on. So in the middle, what we do is we speed up the empty. Now we are looking at the empty, now it's speeding up here, right? So we'll add another location over here, then move it up, move it up, move it up, move it up. Let's see. Then we'll move it up here. Press another I on the location. It's in the camera right now, so this thing is not visible, so the building the pipes. So from here we are going to move the empty more up on the Z axis and make it look up where it's building the structure. Oh, it's not entirely in camera angle, so we're gonna go back to the old keyframe, move it a little bit like this, and again set another keyframe. So we are basically animating the empty, not the camera. We have already set the camera to track the empty. The light is there, now it is completely wrapping around. Then we turn on the light. After we turn on the light, what we need to do is we need to zoom out the camera completely outside the structure. So for that, we need to remove the constraint, or we need to add another camera at the exact same location at frame 820. So let's say we have this camera, we're going to duplicate it, we're going to apply the follow path. Once we apply the follow path, the camera is in position. So when we look through it at the camera location, it will be exactly in the same area after the light turns on. So the other camera is coming in, the light is turning on. When the light turns on, that's our cue at 820, right? Frame 820 to switch to another camera. How to switch to another camera in Blender? So in the view section, in the marker section, we just going to click on bind camera to marker. So now the camera 001 is binded. So in the first frame, frame 0, what we're going to do is select the first camera and marker, bind camera to marker. So in the first camera, when we reach here, it's going to switch to the second camera. Now the second camera, once it switches, then in this camera, we're going to zoom out. We need to apply the tracking as well. Now we don't have any constraints on this camera, right till here. Then at 820, I'm going to add a keyframe for location, rotation, and scale. Then at keyframe 900, it's 900, exactly 900. I'm going to zoom out, move it a little bit down, zoom out, rotate it in the x-axis like this, zoom out, make the entire thing in camera angle like this. Then add another keyframe. Okay, that's a little bit fast. That's a little bit fast. The zooming out is a little bit faster than expected. So what I'm going to do is on the camera 2, I'm going to move that to the last frame. Before we move forward and take the renders, let's just play it once in viewport shading and see how it came out. Well, that looks satisfying for me. and you guys can do this as well. So don't forget, the file is in the description. The Blender model is in the description. You can download it and follow the same steps, and you can achieve the same result or better than me for sure. And there you have it, a floor lamp built and animated from scratch. As you can see, the process has a lot of layers and every step builds on the last. It starts a solid model, but a real story gets told in the animation, curves, and the final lighting. I hope you enjoyed this look into the process and maybe learned a trick or two. This approach of breaking down a complex project into a story can be used for almost anything. It's all about showing the beauty in how things are made. If you enjoyed this and want to see more animations like it, be sure to like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out more than you know. And I would love to hear from you. Let me know in the comments what guide do you want me to make next. Thank you for watching.